Have you ever felt it? The moment a single soul enters a room and the very vibration of the space shifts, a hush falls, not from a command, but from an undeniable presence. It's not because they announced themselves with a loud voice or demanded attention with grand gestures. It is because something in their frequency, something in their very core, whispers a language older than words, the language of power, of danger, of destiny. This is the energy of a soul awakened to the true nature of reality. They carry what the ancients called virtù, not the gentle, pleasing virtue you were taught in stories, but the cold, crystalline intelligence that bends reality to its will. They have awakened from the dream that so many are still lost within. If you have ever felt a stirring within you, a sense that the world operates on a set of rules you were never taught, then you are on the precipice of this same awakening. This journey is not for the faint of heart, but for the soul that yearns to become the architect of its own destiny. Feel the resonance of this message. If it speaks to a truth deep within you, like a long-forgotten memory, then acknowledge it. Like this message, subscribe to this frequency and declare your path in the comments below with the words, "Cold Geniuses." Let the universe know you are ready. Imagine for a moment the intricate tapestry of beliefs woven around you since birth. You were conditioned by a frequency of beautiful lies, comforting illusions designed to keep your spirit in a gentle slumber. You were taught that goodness always prevails, that hard work is a golden ticket to reward, and that treating others with fairness guarantees the same in return. These are the lullabies of the Matrix, whispered by those who benefit from your weakness, by those who feast on your naivete. These beautiful lies were planted in the fertile soil of your mind, watered with societal expectations, and tended by a system that requires your compliance to maintain its own power. While you were diligently practicing kindness, they were mastering the art of manipulation. While you were seeking approval from others, they were seizing control of the narrative. While you played by a set of rules you believed were sacred and universal, rules they never intended to follow, they were rewriting the entire game. They built the board, they crafted the pieces, and they handed you a rule book that ensures you can never truly win. This awakening requires you to see this for what it is, not a tragedy to be mourned, but a dynamic to be mastered. The world does not reward intentions, it rewards results. And results are achieved through cold, unwavering precision, not through kindness wrapped in hope or intelligence, softened by a guilty conscience. The throne of your own life, the seat of your own sovereignty, belongs to those who understand that power is not inherited, gifted, or earned through good intentions alone. True, unshakable power is taken. It is seized by minds that calculate without the fog of emotional attachment, that strike without warning, and that rule their own inner kingdom without apology. You were led to believe in a world of gentle sheep, but you live in a world of wolves. Machiavelli's greatest revelation, the truth that has been whispered in the halls of power for centuries, is that the prince who clings to moral purity in an immoral world becomes prey for those who abandoned such luxuries long ago. The choice is not between being good or evil, it is between being the predator or the prey. He wrote a truth that echoes through the ages, a law of universal energy, as undeniable as gravity itself. Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. Do not mistake this for a celebration of cruelty. This is not the voice of malice. This is the voice of mathematics, of pure, unadulterated spiritual physics. Fear is a frequency that respects boundaries. Love, in its worldly conditional form, often assumes access and invites transgression. Fear calculates consequences with chilling accuracy. Love expects forgiveness, often to its own detriment. Listen closely. Fear builds empires. Love, when wielded by the naive, builds graveyards filled with the noble dead. This is the brutal recognition from which the cold genius, the awakened soul, emerges. He sees that every saint in history was either ignored, martyred, or manipulated by those who understood power's true language. He witnesses daily how the warm-hearted are consumed by the calculating, how the generous are depleted by the takers, and how the forgiving are betrayed repeatedly by those who mistake mercy for permission. But here lies the sacred transformation, the alchemical process that most will never achieve. The cold genius does not become bitter. Bitterness is a poison. It is still an emotion, still a reaction, still a sign of weakness, an energetic anchor that keeps you tethered to the very pain you seek to escape. Instead, he becomes practical. He becomes an alchemist of the soul. He studies the architecture of influence, the psychology of control, and the intricate mechanics of manipulation, not to become a master of darkness, but to become immune to it. When you understand how the game is truly played, you can finally choose whether to be a piece on the board or a player who commands the pieces. You must shift your perception. Consider the predator in nature. The lion does not hate the gazelle. It does not judge the gazelle for being vulnerable or apologize for being deadly. It simply executes its divine nature with perfect, unhesitating efficiency. The cold genius adopts this same sacred relationship with human weakness. He sees vulnerability not as something to pity, but as information to be processed. He recognizes desperation not as suffering to be soothed, but as leverage to be catalogued. He observes emotional dependency not as a need to be fulfilled, but as a control point to be understood and, if necessary, utilized. This profound shift from emotional reaction to analytical observation changes everything. It is a raising of your entire frequency. Where others see drama, you see patterns. Where others feel guilt, you calculate consequences. Where others hope for change, you engineer outcomes. You stop waiting for the world to become fair, and you start making it functional for your divine purpose. You become the architect of your reality, laying down the blueprints of your life with a steady hand, while others are tossed about by the winds of chance and the whims of those who have already mastered this game. This transformation begins with a single, devastatingly powerful acceptance. Nobody is coming to save you. Not your family, not your friends, not society, not justice, not karma, not even God, in the way you were taught. Whatever salvation exists must be constructed by your own hands, using tools forged from the fire of your own mind. This acceptance kills the victim within you permanently. It is the death of a lesser self and the birth of a sovereign being. There can be no more blaming of circumstances. There can be no more expecting of rescue. There can be no more hoping that good things simply come to good people. There is only the cold, hard clarity that results come to those who produce them through deliberate, strategic action. This is the foundation upon which your spiritual fortress is built. Machiavelli observed that fortune, that ever-turning wheel of destiny, favors those who adapt their methods to their times. It favors those who can read the subtle currents of power and navigate accordingly. The cold genius learns to taste the wind of any situation and adjust his sails with perfect precision. He doesn't fight unchangeable realities. He flows around them, using their own momentum to propel him forward. He doesn't waste his precious life force on impossible people or impossible situations. He doesn't pursue relationships that drain his resources or alliances that compromise his strategic position. Instead, he becomes a master student of human nature, so thorough in his observations that people become as predictable to him as the changing of the seasons. He learns what each person fears, what they crave, what they will sacrifice to obtain, and what they will do anything to avoid. He understands that behind every social interaction lies a subtle exchange of value, an energetic transaction, and he ensures that every exchange serves his interests, either immediately or eventually. This knowledge completely transforms how he moves through the world. Simple conversations become intelligence-gathering operations. He listens more than he speaks, not to be polite, but to gather data. Relationships become strategic alliances or calculated risks. Every opportunity is no longer a matter of luck, but a carefully evaluated investment of time, energy, and attention. Nothing is accidental. Nothing is purely emotional. Everything serves the larger design of his ascension. The cold genius doesn't need to announce his evolution. He doesn't declare war on weakness or give grand speeches about strength. He simply begins operating from a different level of consciousness, a higher frequency, while allowing others to remain in their comfortable illusions. They continue playing checkers, following simple, predictable patterns, while he plays the grand game of chess, seeing the entire board 10 moves ahead. They continue reacting to the world as it is presented to them, while he predicts and shapes the world that is to come. They continue hoping, while he controls. Most people will never take this sacred journey. It is a path of profound solitude, for it requires killing the version of themselves they have been trained to protect their entire lives. It means abandoning the deep-seated need to be understood, to be liked, to be approved of, or to be validated by minds that have never understood the true nature of power. It means accepting that greatness is often a lonesome pursuit, that leadership frequently requires unpopular decisions, and that true strength sometimes demands actions that the weak will inevitably call cruel. But for those who can stomach this transformation, for those who can shed their old emotional skin and emerge as something harder, sharper, and more focused, the world becomes an entirely different place. It becomes a place where you no longer ask for permission, but you take your position. A place where you no longer hope for opportunity, but you create it. A place where you no longer fear the game, but you master it completely. Do not let another day pass, playing by rules that were designed to guarantee your defeat. The time for slumber is over. It is time to awaken the cold genius within you. It is time to see the world not through the lens of hope and fear, but through the crystal-clear lens of cause and effect, of pattern and strategy. Subscribe now, because the knowledge that is coming will separate those who merely dream about power from those who seize it. The cold genius operates from a principle Machiavelli embedded throughout his work. Appearances deceive, but patterns reveal. While others react to what people say, you must study what they do. While others trust in stated intentions, you must track actual behaviors. While others hope for loyalty, you must prepare for betrayal. This fundamental shift, from surface reading to pattern recognition, becomes your first and most powerful weapon in a world filled with hidden agendas and silent currents of influence. Every single interaction contains a universe of intelligence, if only you know how to extract it. When someone speaks, they reveal their priorities through what they choose to emphasize. They reveal their insecurities through what they passionately defend. They reveal their ambitions through what they carefully avoid discussing. The cold genius listens not to respond, but to catalog. He files away every contradiction, every emotional trigger, every subtle tell that exposes the truth beneath their carefully constructed performance. This is the art of reading the soul, not through mysticism, but through meticulous observation. He becomes a living library of human nature. Machiavelli warned that men judge more by the eye than by the hand, meaning people believe what they see over what they actually experience. The cold genius weaponizes this human tendency. He crafts his public image as deliberately as a master painter approaches a canvas. Every word is calculated for maximum impact. Every silence is designed for a specific effect. Every action is choreographed to send a precise message to a specific audience. This is not deception in the way the weak understand it. This is communication in its purest, most effective form. You are simply ensuring that the message received by their soul perfectly matches the message you intended to send. There is no room for misinterpretation. When weak minds encounter your precision, they interpret it as intimidation. When calculating minds meet your strategy, they recognize a peer. When desperate minds sense your control, they position themselves as supplicants, hoping for your favor. Your very presence becomes a sorting mechanism, revealing who deserves access to which version of you. The amateur shows all his cards, seeking approval and connection. The cold genius reveals only what serves his purpose. He understands that mystery generates more respect than transparency, that scarcity creates more desire than availability, and that a well-placed question provokes more thought than 1,000 answers. By controlling the flow of information, he controls perception. By managing perception, he influences behavior. By shaping behavior, he directs outcomes. This is the chain of command in the universe of power. Consider how Machiavelli analyzed Cesare Borgia's rise. Borgia didn't succeed through kindness or a sense of fairness. He succeeded through calculated ruthlessness, disguised as necessity. When rivals threatened his territory, he eliminated them swiftly and without hesitation. When allies became liabilities, he severed the connections cleanly and without sentiment. When his subjects needed discipline, he provided it in a way that was memorable and absolute. His actions sent clear, unambiguous messages that established boundaries, expectations, and consequences. The cold genius adopts this same clarity in all his dealings. He doesn't hint at displeasure. He states requirements precisely. He doesn't negotiate with emotional manipulation. He presents logical consequences. He doesn't waste energy on repeated explanations. He demonstrates through action what words fail to communicate. This approach eliminates drama, because drama requires willing participation from both parties. When someone attempts to inject chaos into your life, your cold, detached response removes the very fuel their fire needs to burn. They may rage, they may guilt-trip, they may threaten, or they may promise, but your emotional unavailability makes their tactics utterly powerless. You become like a great stone in a raging river. The water may crash against you, but you remain unmoved, persistent, patient, and ultimately victorious through simple consistency. But mastery requires more than just defensive tactics. The cold genius learns to actively influence the emotional states of others while remaining completely unaffected by them himself. He studies what triggers anger, fear, desire, pride, and shame in different personality types. This is not to abuse this divine knowledge, but to navigate the complex world of social dynamics with surgical precision. When negotiating, he can subtly shift the emotional temperature of the room to favor his position. When networking, he can create the exact impression that opens the specific doors he needs opened. When competing, he can destabilize opponents through calculated psychological pressure, making them doubt themselves and make critical errors. This skill develops through ruthless self-observation. You must first understand your own emotional machinery before you can recognize and influence it in others. Every time you feel triggered, you must pause and study the mechanism. What specific words or actions pushed your buttons? What hidden fears or desires were activated? How did your judgment become clouded by the storm of emotion? This analysis transforms emotional reactions into learning opportunities, gradually building your immunity to external manipulation. The cold genius also recognizes that different situations and different people require different masks. The face he shows to superiors is different from what he presents to equals, which differs again from how he appears to subordinates. He adapts his communication style, his body language, and even his presentation of values to match what each relationship and situation requires. This isn't hypocrisy, this is strategic efficiency. Each person can only process certain types of information. It is inefficient to speak of complex strategies to a simple mind, or to appeal to the honor of a person who has none. So, you deliver your message in the format they can most easily receive. With simple minds, you speak simply. With emotional minds, you provide emotional context. With logical minds, you present pure, unassailable reasoning. You become fluent in multiple intellectual and emotional dialects, allowing you to influence diverse personality types without ever compromising your core message or your ultimate objective. This adaptability requires a profound emotional detachment from your own ego. You cannot effectively play different roles if you are emotionally attached to being seen as one particular type of person. The cold genius views his reputation not as a fixed identity, but as a strategic asset, a tool to be deployed appropriately. He is willing to be misunderstood by some, if it means being perfectly understood by those who truly matter. The ultimate goal is to create what Machiavelli called effectual truth, shaping reality to conform to your design, rather than constantly adapting your design to an existing, often flawed, reality. This requires thinking several moves ahead in every interaction, every decision, every relationship. Before entering any room, the cold genius knows what he wants to accomplish, what obstacles he might encounter, and what tools he will use to overcome them. He scripts multiple conversation paths in his mind, anticipates various reactions, and prepares responses that will guide the discussion toward his desired objectives. This level of preparation is what others perceive as intuition or even omniscience. It intimidates mediocre minds because they encounter someone who seems to predict their thoughts before they even form them. The cold genius appears all-knowing not through some supernatural ability, but through superior preparation meeting opportunity. He studied while they assumed. He planned while they hoped. He prepared while they improvised. The result is a presence that commands attention without demanding it, that influences without obvious persuasion, and that controls without apparent effort. Others sense they are in the presence of a different type of mind, one that operates by rules they don't understand, using strategies they cannot counter. The final evolution of this path transcends individual tactics and becomes a complete worldview. It is an understanding that the universe operates on laws as predictable as physics. The cold genius learns these laws of power until applying them becomes as automatic as breathing. He no longer thinks about strategy, he has become strategy incarnate. This transformation requires accepting that most people are not your equals, not intellectually, not emotionally, and not strategically. This isn't a judgment born of arrogance, it is a recognition based on observable evidence. While you have been studying, they have been entertaining themselves. While you have been preparing, they have been complaining. While you have been evolving, they have been repeating the same self-sabotaging patterns that keep them trapped in mediocrity. The cold genius doesn't waste time trying to elevate others to his level. Instead, he learns to communicate in the language each person can understand, using their own motivations and limitations to guide them toward his desired outcomes. He plays an entirely different game than his competition, operating on timescales they cannot comprehend, using strategies they cannot counter. The final stage of this awakening involves transcending even your own emotional attachment to the outcomes themselves. The cold genius pursues his objectives with total, unwavering commitment while remaining psychologically unattached to any specific result. If one path becomes blocked, he immediately and seamlessly shifts to an alternative route. If one relationship becomes counterproductive, he cleanly severs the connection without a moment's regret. If one strategy proves ineffective, he adopts a different approach without any ego investment in the original plan. This fluidity makes him essentially undefeatable because he cannot be trapped by his own preferences, loyalties, or previous commitments. He adapts faster than his environment changes, staying perpetually ahead of trends, threats, and opportunities. The world belongs to minds that think this way, not because they are cruel or heartless, but because they are effective in a universe that rewards effectiveness above all other qualities. They have learned to align themselves with the natural forces of the world rather than fighting against them. They have accepted total responsibility for their outcomes rather than blaming external circumstances. They have developed the discipline to act based on cold logic rather than fleeting impulse. This is your moment of choice. Will you continue living as reality's victim, a piece moved by unseen hands? Or will you awaken and become its architect,